Hello and welcome to the news on NTA International. I am Chinenye Nwoye. First, let's bring you the headlines. German government reaffirms commitment to food security in Northeast, launches second phase of a resilience and peace building project with 20 million euros. Federal government signs memorandum of understanding to revolutionize building practices in the country. Plus, investigation into Air India crash reveals faulty engines. Many thanks for joining us. President Bola Tinubu has departed Rio de Janeiro after attending the 2025 BRICS summit hosted by Brazil. The presidential 001 flight took off from the Galeão Air Force Base, Rio de Janeiro, at about 1 p.m. Brazilian time. The president, who was invited on account of Nigeria as a partner country by the Brazilian president, Luiz Lula da Silva, addressed the gathering on the first day of the summit of heads of state and government of the emerging economies in the world. He called for a re-evaluation of the current global governance structure and the financial and healthcare systems, urging greater equity and inclusion for low-income and emerging economies, particularly in Africa. Nigeria became the 9th partner country of BRICS in January 2025, joining Belarus, Bolivia, Cuba, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Thailand, Uganda, and Uzbekistan. President Tinubu departed Nigeria on June 28 for St. Lucia, where he established a formal bilateral relationship with the host country and the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. Germany has reaffirmed its commitment to Northeast Nigeria's recovery by funding the second phase of a UNICEF WFP Resilience and Peacebuilding program with 20 million euros. The initiative builds on the success of its first phase, which supported over 150,000 people, including children, pregnant women, and food-insecure households in Borno and Yobe states. The program, implemented by the Borno and Yobe state governments, aims to reach over 200,000 people by expanding into 4 additional local government areas: Bama, Kodunga, Potiskum, and Jakusko. It focuses on delivering essential services, enhancing food security, and fostering peace building to address the region's protracted challenges. UNICEF Nigeria representative Christian Munduata emphasized the program's impact on improving the well-being of children and women, noting that Northeast Nigeria's harsh conditions. She expressed gratitude for Germany's continued investment in protecting the region's most vulnerable populations. Dr. Karin Jansen, head of Development Cooperation at the Germany Embassy in Abuja, underscored Germany's pride in supporting community-led recovery. Partnering the UNICEF and WFP, the initiative aims to build resilience against conflict and climate challenges, particularly for women and children. The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Oil, Senator Henneken Lopobri, is urging the international community, particularly the Global North, to accord Africa its rightful position as a vital part of the global energy landscape. Lopobri wants investment opportunities deepened to support the continent's development. Lydia Sampson reports on the minister's participation from the ministerial session of the 9th OPEC International Seminar in Vienna, Austria.
Speaking on the theme, oil markets, energy security, growth and prosperity, Henneken Lopobri emphasized that Africa can only contribute meaningfully to global energy security if empowered through investment like other regions of the world. He reiterates that Africa cannot be excluded from the solutions while being most affected by the challenges.
We need to optimize production in Africa. Nigeria, had enormous, refining capacity, but we don't even have the crew to be able to, to meet the demand of, not just Nigeria, but the entire West African region. In Nigeria, whatever you produce in Nigeria services the West African sub-region. If you import, any refined product into Nigeria, and the players who are in the industry, here, can be any witness. If we import them, we continue to refine product into Nigeria. It services the countries that are within the West African sub-region. Chad, Niger, Benin Republic, Cameroon, up to Central African Republic. So we need investment in all the sectors.
The minister highlighted Nigeria's bold reforms under the leadership of President Bola Tinubu, which have repositioned the country's energy sector and created a more stable, transparent and investment-friendly environment. Heineken Lokobiri noted that Nigeria holds enormous capacity in the oil and gas sector, particularly in refining. He, however, acknowledged that increased investment is needed across the upstream, midstream and the downstream value chains to unlock the country's full potential. He urged the Global North to support Africa's development and integrate the continent into the broader global energy transition. The minister also reaffirmed Nigeria's readiness to lead regional collaboration and investment-friendly growth in the energy sector. Lydia Sampson, NTA News.
African Union AU marks African Anti-Corruption Day with a charge on all member states to reinforce human dignity in their anti-graft strategies. Charles Alpha reports.
The 2025 African Anti-Corruption Day is commemorated under the theme Promoting Human Dignity in the Fight Against Corruption. The commemoration held annually on 11 July aligns this year with the overarching AU theme, Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations. Chairperson of the African Union, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, emphasized that corruption is not merely an economic crime but a direct assault on human dignity and security as it robs countries of their potential and individuals of their dignity. He notes that just as the continent seeks to address historical injustices through reparations, it must equally dismantle contemporary corrupt systems that perpetuate indignity and injustice. The 2025 African Anti-Corruption Day theme seeks to sensitize Africans of the importance of examining history and to shape a shared future based on the dignity of our people. He stressed that the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, adopted 22 years ago, remains the guiding framework. He is urging member states to continue aligning national legislation and strategies with its principles, particularly Article 2, Section 4, which enjoins state parties to promote socio-economic development by removing obstacles to the enjoyment of economic, social and cultural rights, as well as civil and political rights. The AU chairperson calls for immediate action by members to fulfill their commitment to effectively tackle corruption and implement measures that apply a human rights lens in prevention and enforcement. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan hosted Somalia President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud in Ankara for a high-level meeting focused on strengthening bilateral relations, particularly in the areas of counter-terrorism and regional cooperation. The talks were held behind closed doors at the presidential complex, according to a statement released by Turkey's Communications Directorate. The meeting comes as tensions between Somalia and Ethiopia escalate as mediation efforts over a controversial port access agreement stall. The talks, brokered by Turkey since February 2024, aims to resolve a dispute triggered by a deal signed on January 2024 between Ethiopia and the self-declared Republic of Somaliland. The Embassy of the Arab Republic of Egypt in Nigeria has celebrated the 74th anniversary of the historic July 23rd Revolution of 1952 at a special ceremony in Abuja. The event was described as a significant milestone in Egypt's pursuit of full independence and socio-economic development. Suleiman Abdul Wahab reports.
The Egyptian ambassador to Nigeria, Muhammad Fuad, received members of the diplomatic corps government officials, development partners, and friends of Egypt, marking the country's National Revolution Day. In his remarks, he reaffirmed Egypt's commitment to strengthening ties with Nigeria and expressed hope for peace and prosperous Africa.
We are proud of the growing people-to-people exchange between Egypt and Nigeria that has significantly intensified over the last few years through tourism, business, education, constituting a solid foundation for our bilateral relations.
Ambassador Fuad described the 1952 revolution as a turning point in Egypt's modern history, highlighting its role in expanding access to education, healthcare, and land ownership.
First is the aviation area. Secondly, communication, transportation, agri, defense, security, name it. Nigeria has strong ties with Egypt.
I also want them to be fluent in Arabic as well as complete their recitation of the Quran. So for those reasons, I have moved half of my family to Egypt.
The ceremony echoed calls for Middle East ceasefire, the release of hostages, and renewed dialogue for peace. In Abuja, Suleiman Tobu Abdul Wahab, NTA News.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Saturday met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un during his visit to the secretive country and key Moscow ally. Lavrov was received by Kim Jong-un, two men shaking hands and greeting with a hug. Russian and North Korean state media announced the visit earlier, saying Lavrov would stay until Sunday. It is the latest in a series of high-profile trips by top Moscow officials as both countries deepen military and political ties over Russia's offensive in Ukraine. Pyongyang sent thousands of troops to Russia's Kursk region to host Kyiv's forces and provided the Russian army with artillery shells and missiles. The head of the United Nations Migration Agency warned that Western nations risk creating greater instability by simultaneously tightening borders and reducing development aid to countries experiencing mass migration. Amy Pope, Director General of the International Organization for Migration, IOM, says Western nations may be fueling the very crisis they aim to prevent by failing to address the root causes of migration. Pope said it is fair and appropriate for governments to address that concern, but there is real value in developing a comprehensive approach. Investigation into Air India crash has revealed fuel was cut off for both engines, and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and President Xi met in China to boost trade ties. Details with Charles Alpha.
Fuel control switches to the engines of the Air India flight that crashed shortly after takeoff, killing 260 people, were moved from the run to the cutoff position moments before impact, a preliminary investigation report said on Saturday. The report issued by India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau did not offer any conclusion or apportion blame for the June 12 disaster. The Boeing 7878 Dreamliner was headed for Ahmedabad in western India to London, where it crashed, killing all but one of the 242 people on board, as well as 19 people on the ground. In its 15-page report, the Investigation Bureau said that once the aircraft achieved its top recorded speed, the Engine 1 and Engine 2 fuel cutoff switches transition from run to cutoff position, one after another, with a time gap of 1 second. In the cockpit voice recording, one of the pilots was heard asking the other, why did he cut off the fuel? The other pilot responded that he did not do so. Thereafter, the aircraft quickly began to lose altitude. The switches then returned to the run position, and the engines appeared to be gathering power, but one of the pilots transmitted "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday." The report said the aircraft controllers asked the pilots what was wrong, but then saw the plane crashing and called emergency personnel to the scene. In other news, Australian Prime Minister jetted to Beijing to strengthen ties as a multi-billion-dollar US submarine deal spurred by China's military build-up hangs in doubt. Reports say he faces a diplomatic tightrope in China as spectre of Trump, and AUKUS review looms large. While the Prime Minister is in Beijing to strengthen economic and diplomatic ties with Australia's largest trading partner, he will take a business delegation to the cities of Shanghai, Beijing and Chengdu for a 6-day trip from Saturday, while also advancing Australia's security interests. Elsewhere, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Saturday his country had achieved victory after Kurdish rebels destroyed their weapons, ending their decades-long armed struggle against Ankara. Friday's symbolic weapons destruction ceremony in Iraqi Kurdistan, he said, marked a major step in the transition of the Kurdish Workers' Party from armed insurgency to democratic politics. The ensuing conflict has cost more than 40,000 lives.
This is the news on NTA International. We'll take a break here. We'll be back shortly. This day. Many thanks for staying on. Ensuring historical accuracy, contextual relevance and editorial excellence, aligning the document with professional editorial and language standards, and finalizing the manuscript for publication and distribution. This formed part of the terms of reference of an 11-member editorial committee for the book on the history of the civil service inaugurated by the head of the civil service of the Federation, Didi Esther Wilson-Jack. Haman Jabani reports.
The Federal Civil Service has undergone a profound transformation over the decades, from the colonial administrative framework through the early post-independence reforms to the current era marked by innovation, digitization, and performance-driven service delivery. Capturing this historical evolution in a consolidated, authoritative publication is essential not only for preserving institutional memory, but also for promoting national administrative scholarship and deepening public understanding of the public services role in governance and development. The committee, chaired by Dr. Habiba Lawan, a retired permanent secretary, has been given a 2-week timeline to propose a befitting title for the publication, recommend an additional improvement where necessary, and undertake any other tasks necessary to produce a book that will stand the test of time.
Through this publication, we are telling our story in our own words, from our own lived institutional experiences. It will offer a rare blend of history, reform, and vision for the future.
And it has remained the most consistent apolitical institution in this country, even when history recorded that for 3 days there was no government in this country. The civil service stood still.
The project is directly aligned with the Federal Civil Service Strategy and Implementation Plan 2021 to 2025, particularly in the area of documenting service-wide reforms and fostering a culture of learning and innovation. It reflects the ongoing commitment in repositioning the civil service as a forward-thinking institution grounded in professionalism, accountability, and excellence. Hamad Jabani, NTA News.
The Federal Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology has entered into a strategic partnership with Coren, COMEG, Carbon and Tectonics Engineering Group to transform building practices across Nigeria. This landmark agreement aims to harness cutting-edge science, technology and innovation to curb preventable infrastructure failures, including collapsing buildings, unsafe bridges and deteriorating roads. Justin Bem-Unyi reports.
Cracked foundations, failed bridges and collapsing buildings may soon become relics of the past, thanks to a new pact between the federal government and key players in the engineering and building ecosystem. The Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, COREN, the Council of Nigerian Mining Engineers and Geoscientists, COMEG, the Council of Registered Builders of Nigeria, COBON, and Tectonics Engineering Group have now teamed up with the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology to chart a fresh course for infrastructure delivery in Nigeria. Under the agreement, smart tools like geospatial data mapping, digital twin simulations, AI-powered diagnostics, and predictive engineering will be deployed, enabling real-time monitoring and data-driven construction decisions. The Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology described the MOU as a bold national commitment, a proactive step to ensure every Nigerian lives, works, and travels in safe, secure spaces.
The MOU gives life to joint monitoring, shared data sets, standardized testing, and climate-resilient construction models. It positions Nigeria to finally close the integrity gap in our built environment by anchoring infrastructure development in science, evidence, and enforcement. Let me be clear. This is not about bureaucracy. This is about more accountability. It is about elevating professional engineering and building practice from a fragmented effort to a unified national movement.
The Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology sees the pact as more than just a document, but a national blueprint to protect lives, save billions, and restore public confidence. Justin Bemunyi, NTA News.
The Nigerian music industry, renowned for its global cultural influence, is amplifying its voice to confront one of the planet's most pressing challenges, climate change. This emerging movement found an expression at the Music and Climate Change Summit in Abuja, where the intersection of sound and sustainability was center stage, highlighting how music can raise awareness, inspire action, and contribute to environmental solutions. Charles Alpha reports.
Music transcends language barriers and connects deeply on an emotional level, making it an ideal medium for communicating complex issues like climate change. And for this, Nigerian artists are increasingly leveraging their platforms to become climate activists, using their voices to amplify messages of sustainability and environmental preservation. This inaugural Nigerian Music Industry Climate Change Summit by UNEP 50 aimed to unite industry stakeholders, climate activists, and policymakers to discuss the role of Nigerian artists in promoting climate action.
A normal person in the local community in Meduguri do not understand what we call flood, do not understand what we say that the sea is rising, do not understand what we call drought and desertification, do not understand what we mean afforestation, deforestation. So these are the things we have to transform into village to tell them, okay, when you do this, this is the effect.
Well, the thing is that I have so many social media platforms. Once I put it there, fire, Osaloko.
I'm happy that this discussion is happening now, because a couple of years ago it wasn't like, it wasn't a conversation we wanted to be having, but of course there's still a long way to go, but we'll get there.
Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, tasked the music industry to explore how the cultural, social, and emotional power of music can drive awareness, advocacy, and behavioral change for peace and development.
As Nigerians, let us not shy away from it. That climate change is a call to action that we all must do what must embark on.
Charles Alpha, NTA News.
Advocacy for a holistic review of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended to save the country from constant amendments of the Constitution is underway. A member of the inner bar in the legal profession, Mohammed Ndarani Mohammed, SAN, made the advocacy in Abuja. Dele Atumbi of our Judiciary Desk reports.
The Constitution of a country, also known as the Grundum, establishes the fundamental principles and framework for governing the state. It defines the structure of the government, its powers, and the relationship between the government and the citizens, including the protection of their rights and freedoms. It is in the light of this that the Constitution, as the fulcrum of governance, must have the input of the people. The ongoing Constitution amendment, being championed by the National Assembly, is to improve on the subsisting Constitution of the country. The process must draw from the peculiarities of Nigeria, the demographics, the ethnicity, the economic structure, as well as many other variables that make up Nigeria.
There is therefore a great need for the National Assembly to make provision for a proper referendum prior to amendments to those critical areas of the Constitution.
Between 2007 and 2025, 5 amendments have been made to the Grundum crafted by the military for Nigeria.
I also align my humble self with the indigenship bill tabled by the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Ben Kalu, who proposed a bill to grant indigenous status to individuals who have resided in a state for 10 years or married a natives.
As the plenary for the review of the Constitution is billed for October 2025, Mohammed Ndarani Mohammed, SAN, advised that the voice of the people should be heard to ensure a greater relevance and acceptability of the outcome. In Abuja, Dele Atumbi, NTA News.
And that's the news on NTA International. Well, thank you so much for being a part of it. I am Chinenye Moyi.